from the town as well as other volunteers to help prepare the application forms. We submitted a letter of support for the proposed project, and we're hoping for approval for funding for Canada's Heritage Canada 150 Fund once they review the application. And last item that I want to provide an update on is our Fun Casino Night, which is Saturday, October 1st, that we're hosting at the Royal Canadian Legion. So it is the Legion's 90th anniversary this year, and so this event is being held in part to support them and celebrate the milestone with the Legion and its members. Doors will open at 7 p.m. The Casino Fun Night starts at 8. We're selling tickets now for $25 for Legion Chamber members and $35 for non-members. You can get the tickets on the Chamber website, at the Legion, at the ATB, as well as at Rocky's Bakery. For the casino, Aces Are Wild, they're a team of professional dealers, so they're going to host with us. They make sure that everybody's having a good time. They're great hosts. And so those that are unfamiliar with how to play get a lesson from the dealers as well. They make sure it's good for everybody. With your ticket, you get $50,000 in fun money to start off the evening. And those that are lucky will have some prizes to bid on at the end of the night to add some fun to it. Then throughout the course of the evening, we'll also have a silent auction. So please do bring your allowance with you and bid on some really nice prizes that we'll have there. And then throughout the course of the night, we'll also have a 50-50 draw to support the evening in the Legion. So we'd like to invite everybody, bring your friends and family, please. It's going to be a great time. And that's all I've got for updates. So does anybody have any questions for us?
No, but I do have one quick, was it Thursday, October the 12th for the open house? I didn't.
The open house, Thursday, October 20th.
20th,
Okay.
and that's at noon or in the evening?
10 to
Between
2.
11 and 1.
11 to 1. Oh,
Sorry, the grand opening between 11 and 1.
Okay,
Our regular hours, Tuesday, Wednesday, you can drop by
10 to 2.
between 10 and 2. Good.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And what an opportunity to gamble on October the 1st. Alrighty, next item on our agenda is now 5A, and that is, if I remember right, a progress report on the volunteer driver program. Care?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Because we've had some inquiries about our volunteer driver program, Darlene and I decided with administration to prepare a brief progress report on where we're at with the program, and then the intention is to come back in October to give you a more step-by-step on how the process works in the community. So, I'm gonna let Darlene explain to you, because she was so kindly took the lead on this pilot project that she's going to do a little bit more detail for you.
Thank you. I am very pleased to stand before you to discuss the volunteer driver program. The CARE program was started April 28th, 2014. 2016 as a pilot project, which will be evaluated again May of 2018. During 2014 interagency meetings, it was discussed, transportation was discussed a lot, and the lack of transportation mainly was discussed. It was suggested that Strathmore FCSS put together a group of people to talk about transportation, where the gaps are, and maybe some resolutions to that. It was noted at that time that the handy bus was very busy. They had also changed their hours, and they were a vital part of this meeting, and they supported a new program. We spent a lot of time researching the volunteer driver program, and we worked mostly with Canmore FCSS because they have a very good program that's been up and running for about 10 years. We decided to name the volunteer driver program CARE, which stands for kind, accessible, reliable and economical. That was our own name that we came up with. When we were looking at this program, we met with Bonnie Dodds, who is a Director of Medically at Risk Center Professor in the Department of the University of Alberta. And we went and spent lots of time with her, and she was the one who discovered, put together with her researchers, the Transportation Toolkit, which is for alternate transportation for seniors in Alberta. It was very important that she also saw a need across Alberta that we need alternate transportation. We also used the commercial driver guide to set up our volunteer program, so we didn't inflict on the definition of for hire. For hire means a Class 4 license is required for a driver who is operating a vehicle under the condition for hire, as defined below from the Operator Licensing and Vehicle Control Regulation. For hire with respect to a vehicle means that the owner or operator's employer is being paid for the service that the vehicle is being used to provide. But for the purposes of Section 23, which is a Class 3 license, and 25, which is a Class 5 license, a motor vehicle is not for hire when the operator drives a passenger vehicle for the transportation of passengers on an incidental or occasional basis and receives compensation in the respect of the transportation of those passengers only in one of more of the following items. They gave you 3 choices, and we chose to compensate our volunteer drivers as payment for kilometers traveled. And the rate in the guide is not to exceed the limit of the tax-exempt allowance, and we are far below that. Just to give you some stats since its inception on April 28th, 2016, we've had 66 requests. Of these 66 requests, we have not been able to accommodate only 6. Of these 60 trips, 40 of them were either to Calgary, Red Deer, or Drumheller, and they were all for medical appointments. 7 of those 60 trips as well were to the Strathmore Hospital for lab work. And what we provide as well is the client will call our office, tell us they have to go for lab work. We will go online, book a lab appointment for them, coordinate it with the driver so that alleviates wait time for both the driver and the client. Although the community, through the needs assessment and through our transportation meeting, Strathmore FCSS recognizes that there is a need in Strathmore, and we have identified that our volunteer driver program is a work in progress. Our recommendation to Council is that to accept this report for information with the intention for FCSS to present to Council a step-by-step presentation of the CARE program in October of 2016.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Sobel?
Thank you. Just this week at some point, Council was provided with some information from the Insurance Bureau of Canada. Is that something that you folks are prepared to comment on and provide and share that information with our audience?
Absolutely,
Council?
absolutely. In fact, I got back this afternoon from the Grey Matters Conference, and I sat and spoke with 2 gentlemen from the Bureau of Canada's Consumer Information Centre. They said that there was increasing questions about volunteer drivers and the insurance recommendations. That's why they created this cheat sheet. I talked to them about maybe if they had any experience with drivers or insurance company not wanting to insure a volunteer driver because they are a volunteer driver. And he said there should be no cause for an insurance company to do that because they have to adhere to these regulations as well.
So I know there's seven bullets on that
Yes.
on that document, And I'd invite you to read them all, but I'm more concerned if you could just provide
Highlight.
information on the first three. I think those are the most relevant.
Okay, so if you are a volunteer driver, you do not need additional insurance. Even if you're being reimbursed for driving, expenses such as mileage or wear or tear, being a volunteer driver isn't the same as being isn't the same as transporting a paid passenger, sorry. Your insurance premiums or coverage shouldn't be affected as a volunteer driver, but it's best that you let the insurance provider know that you are a volunteer driver. You're not required to increase your liability coverage as a volunteer driver, but you must have the minimum liability insurance as outlined by your province of residence. And all of our volunteer drivers have to submit proof of insurance and $2 million liability, as well as valid registration, driver's abstract as well.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Just
Deputy
a
Mayor
quick
Fuel?
question, Your Worship, through the chair to Catherine and Darlene. So if I'm accepted and I need to be taken to Drumheller for a medical appointment and I get a volunteer driver and you guys line up the appointment for me, who pays then the mileage for the trip to?
You
Drum?
would pay the mileage?
The person being taken?
Yeah, the client would pay it directly to the driver. FCSS has nothing to do with the monies being paid.
Okay.
We just facilitate the scheduling and the requests.
And again, these are volunteer drivers, correct?
Absolutely volunteer.
So they can turn down and decline if
Yes.
they can't take someone or
Yes.
not able to?
That's right. And they do fill out a volunteer application. We do a driver's abstract, like I said. We do a police check. We do everything because we want our clients to be confident and comfortable with the service that we're providing.
Thank you for that answer, and thanks for your clarification in this report, too.
Okay. Councillor Graychuk?
So the fee, is that a set fee, or is that just agreed between the two parties and you?
No, we have recommendations, so it's 45 cents a kilometer. And it return to Calgary, and if it's in Strathmore, it's a minimum $3 charge. So if you're just going to the bank and back, it's $3. If you're going to Calgary, it's $45 return, and our driver will sit and wait while you have your appointment, or they'll go and do some shopping, or they'll do whatever. We had one driver take a client for ice cream after. So there's a little bit of a personal touch there. And to Drumheller, I believe it is $85 return.
So the other thing I got is nowadays, does the driver have to get a police check and all that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's all been done.
Yeah, they have quite a volunteer screening process that we go through.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Blokman, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks for the information you're handing out. I was working on this exact information well before May 4th when the original bylaw was defeated. I actually sat in my insurance broker's office, and through a conference call, we talked to one of the biggest insurance companies in Canada, and the information I'm getting from them is altogether different from this. So maybe different insurance companies have different ideas, I'm not sure. I'm not here to kill this program. I'm here to make sure this is put out in a fair and equitable way when we get to the taxi bylaw, where this is headed to. This particular insurance company, in essence, told me this is operating as a taxi service. You advertise rates, you guys collect remuneration in some way, shape, or form. In fact, the same insurance company would not, and I repeat, would not insure these drivers or their vehicles under this program. Now, I'm not saying anything negative about what you're doing. It sounds that way, but I'm trying to work, it's very complicated here. I'm trying to work with this taxi bylaw that's coming up, and this plus about 3 or 4 other ones could be involved in the same thing. We're talking about the CARE program. There's also the youth club bus. There's a private before and after daycare service that runs a bus. There's a Legion bus. There's a handy bus, although I believe the handy bus is legally operating. There's a safety mandate that's a common factor in all of this.
Yeah, and I can't speak to any of that. I can only speak to the volunteer driver program and the information from the Insurance Bureau of
Yeah,
Canada.
and this is the exact same stuff we talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I spoke to them again this week, and they said every insurance company would insure a volunteer driver.
Okay.
They absolutely said that, without a doubt.
Councillor Peterson?
I'd just like to say that that's consistent with my understanding for transporting students under Golden Hills has specifications beyond this for the school division to indemnify themselves and protect children, but it's no problem to insure volunteer drivers.
No further questions?
Thank you.
Well, thank you for
We
this
appreciate the
opportunity. I
information very
appreciate
much.
that.
Thank you.
Worship, I move that this report and information be accepted for information purposes.
We have a motion to accept the report for information purposes with the intention for FCSS to present to council a step-by-step presentation of the CARE program in October 2016. Did I hear you say all of that?
Absolutely, that's
I thought
exactly
so.
what I said.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the curling rink lease agreement, community services, please.
Good evening. At the June 15 regular council meeting, the Strathmore Curling Club presented to council a report on their club status and a request for the next lease agreement. The Strathmore Curling Club has been successfully managing and operating the Strathmore Curling Rink for over 30 years. Within that time, they've been excellent tenants, meeting all obligations set out in the lease agreements and making numerous improvements to the facility, including upgrades to the functionality and appearance of the facility, improvements to the operational efficiencies of the rink, ongoing compliance and changes with regulations, and general enhancement of the overall curling experience for their members. As a nonprofit organization, like many, the Strathmore Curling Club relies on funding from Alberta Gaming through the casino program. The Rural Calgary casino schedule has become less frequent, averaging approximately 36 months, which requires organizations to stretch funds over 3 fiscal years. The Strathmore Curling Club has requested a 5-year lease agreement with a 50-50 cost sharing on the facility electrical costs. Some information that was requested by council is highlighted in this report. As I mentioned, the Strathmore Curling Club is successfully managing and operating the curling club. To give you a better understanding of the financial piece, we've split up some of the responsibilities. As you can see, the Strathmore Curling Club manages ice installation and maintenance throughout their season. They manage the lounge and kitchen. They have insurance and ensure that they have all licenses required. They manage their own club office, including supplies and resources. They pay the entire electrical utility bill currently, their television and their phone and TV costs, as well as any advertising and promotions. The town's portion, as the owner of the property, we're responsible for overall building maintenance, including the roof and structure, site maintenance, including the parking lot and any exterior lights, equipment maintenance, including the HVAC system and the furnace, ice plant maintenance and repairs, building inspections, garbage, sewer, and water costs, and any building depreciation. Additionally, within the 10-year capital plan for the town, we've approximately $400,000 worth of capital assets identified to be repaired or replaced over the next 5 years. That includes the HVAC unit, the makeup air unit, 2 furnaces, and the ice plant.
Do you want to ask the question now? Okay. Get questions in first.
They do things backwards.
Okay, keep going. Sorry for the interruptions.
Over the past few years, the Strathmore Curling Club has been actively finding ways to increase revenues to alleviate the pressure from their casino funds. Since 2013, they have over doubled their revenue from sponsorship and advertising. Additionally, they've seen increases in lounge sales and membership dues. These increases have moved them towards a more balanced budget. In 2013, their net loss was close to 27,000, whereas in 2015 they moved that to 9,000. Those losses are offset by their casino funds. The Strathmore Curling Club management of the facility is largely done by volunteer hours. This is approximately valued at a $100,000 contribution to the facility. In the event that the Strathmore Curling Club could no longer financially operate the facility, this cost would become a liability for the town. Over the past 5 years, the Strathmore Curling Club, or the Strathmore Curling Rink, averages $24,000 annually in electrical costs. The request to share the electrical, if a 50-50 split, would add approximately $12,000 to the town's operating budget for the facility. Upon reviewing the request from the Strathmore Curling Club, as well as the financial statements they provided, we are recommending a 5-year lease agreement with a 50-50 cost sharing of the electrical charges. It is evident that without additional support through utility cost sharing, the Strathmore Curling Club will not remain solvent in the long term. Any questions?
Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. In the recommendation, which I appreciate, and I appreciate the work brought forward by the Curling Club and through yourself, I note that they're asking for a 5-year lease agreement, and I was wondering why it wouldn't be a 5-year lease agreement with an option.
That's definitely something we can look at. It wasn't identified in the request from the Curling
I'm
Club.
just afraid they're going to make us take it over, Your Worship.
I don't think they have any interest in us taking over. They're very keen to keep operating the facility. They just want to make sure that it's financially sound.
Thank you.
I think in terms of the town, we would be looking at more of the short-term lease due to some potential growth in recreation up in that area.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Fuel?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have 2 quick questions, easy questions through the chair. One would be, again, I guess the curling board is here, they could speak to it too. Has the board, or through your negotiations or discussions with them, thought of a longer lease than 5 years? Because we seem to be quite content with how things are going with the curling board.
I've put it in the motion.
Oh, you have? Okay. And then my second question is, just as a little more information as we present it to the public and the media, would the board be able to just tell us, ballpark figure, the numbers of curlers you have involved in your club and as a recreation group, from juniors all the way up to seniors and adults? Do you have a ballpark number?
Craig, maybe you can speak to those questions.
The current membership, including juniors, is about 250. So we have 64 juniors, 2 age groups, which maxes out our junior program currently. And the balance is men's, ladies, mixed. Seniors run about 20 seniors 3 times a week currently. And Stu Shaw will come up and speak to the question from Councillor Peterson with regards to an option on the lease.
I know, Your Worship.
Yes, Councillor Graychuk?
And the other question I got is, how many bonspiels do you do approximately a year?
We do men's, ladies, mixed, 2 junior bonspiels. This year we have the senior men's district playdowns in December. And over the next 3 years, we have 3 provincial events coming. So I guess that's men's, ladies, mixed. 2 juniors is 5. And now with our new ice technicians and what's happened the last 3 years, we're on the radar to start hosting provincial events on a long-term go-forward basis because of our ice. We had the gold medalists here last year, Ben Hebert and John Morris, that was here to support the new water polo club. We had Ed Lukowicz here, former world champion, who actually won our men's bonspiel and was thrilled and came to our club to tune up to go to the Canadian Seniors and Masters in the Maritimes a week later. So that's how much attention our facility's getting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Which I might add that all those bonspiels bring a lot of commerce to the community.
Yeah.
Your Worship and Councillors, answering your question regarding the term of the contract or the agreement. When we presented our 2016 agreement, we had requested a 10-year lease at that time, which was consistent with our last lease before that. But in meeting with administration, there was, as Tracy alluded to, there was some discussion around uncertainty around growth with the Civic Center and requirements there and what they might want to do with the curling club. So that was the reason why we took a shorter view in terms of 5 years. We'd certainly be open to inclusion of an option clause that would give us the opportunity to extend it longer than that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? I do have a few. What, you're showing on your operating expenses that they're supporting in approximately $128,800, but I don't see what the revenue is.
Didn't include that. The financial statements can be shared with council if you wish.
We had the financial statements.
I believe they may have even been sent to you.
Yeah, we did have it.
So with that in mind, there's an indication that they're struggling. And I'm wondering if they are looking at different sources for revenue, or what they're looking at down the road to make sure that they are going to be able to be a viable going concern.
Based on the financials and the report they've provided, I think I would answer that yes, they are. They've been working diligently with new ice makers and volunteers to increase their sponsorship and advertising revenues. They've almost doubled that amount that comes into the club just in 2 years.
Your Worship, if I could add, I might have some information too for your question.
By all means, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Just in working at different times and being invited to one of their sponsors' thank you events, I know they've invested money in, I don't know how to explain this, dressing up the lounge. They have put in nice tables and they've created a pub-style atmosphere. So they're trying to get more aggressive as far as renting the lounge area for things like weddings, 50th birthday parties for people in the community. Sorry, Debbie. Now everybody knows your age. But yeah, so they're more aggressive as far as marketing their club and their lounge to attract other things besides curling, other events that could go on there. So they are looking at other revenue streams. They were even talking to me about looking at switching over lights to LED to cut down on their operating costs as far as the lighting and the utilities. So they are examining other streams and ways to cut down on their operating expenses, from my experience with the board. Thank you.
I was going to mention that point as well. And I think the other point is the Bonspiel is becoming an attractive facility for provincial events, bringing a new revenue stream into the club.
Okay, thank you.
I have one last question.
You go ahead, Councillor Peterson, ask your question.
One of the board members has his hand up, Your Worship.
Go ahead, sir.
Your Worship, also to answer a bit of your query, a year ago, we were quoted over $15,000 to have our website rebuilt. Instead of doing that, we hired the high school class that specializes in that, and they did it on a volunteer basis, and it's an amazing website. So they did a great job and saved the club a lot of money. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's good.
Did you have something else?
I just had one question, Tracy. So of course it would start at the beginning of, like, back to January of 2016, I'm assuming?
We currently are in a lease agreement from January 1st of 2016 till December 31st of this year. So this lease agreement would be negotiated to start January 1st,
Perfect.
2017.
That's all I had, Your Worship.
Okay.
And I'm prepared to make a motion whenever you're ready.
Okay. In regards to the utilities, you're estimating $12,000 for utilities. Speculation is that the cost of utilities are going to be going up. So if we're going to be budgeting this additional money, and council has to budget the money, are you going to be coming forward with a recommendation when we're planning our budget in regards to an increase in utilities?
Yes,
Yes, okay.
is the short answer.
The way, your worship, if I may,
Yes, go ahead.
the way the
50-50.
motion is going to be that it's a 50-50 split, so we don't mention a figure in that motion.
No, we don't. But we do mention
We don't know, how will you know the
$12,000.
exact figure?
Yeah, we don't.
So if I may, the finance department is responsible for setting and forecasting utility rates. They do it for all of our facilities, and so they would be the ones that would look at. We do that currently in our operating budget. We forecast the utility rates. Even though we don't currently pay them, they're built into the operating costs. And then they're recovered through payment back from the club.
I do see that when the carbon tax comes in, we're got another 25% increase here. If the provincial and the federal governments get their way. Seriously.
Yeah, and so the way the motion reads is that we would be a 50-50 cost sharing no matter what increase is there. And so our estimates based on past years is 12,000, but that doesn't take into account any potential increases.
Also, in your report that you're giving us tonight, you say that the 10-year capital plan, approximately $400,000 in capital costs are scheduled over the next 4 years. And I'm assuming that's to replace the chiller, the ice making.
Yeah, so approximately half of that is to start rebuilding the ice plant itself, and the other half is for building infrastructure, including the HVAC, the furnaces, and the makeup air unit.
So our our 66,000 in regards to our expenses will likely be going up
Correct.
significantly. Okay, thank you. Any further questions by anybody else? Councillor Peterson, I will accept the motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that council direct administration to draft a lease agreement with the Strathmore Curling Club to include the following terms. A 5-year term beginning January 1st, 2017, with an option for an additional 5-year term with, with either partner being able to propose such, and a 50-50 cost sharing of the electrical charges. And second part, that council formally offer its gratitude to the Strathmore Curling Club for 30 years of exemplary service.
Thank you. Discussion? Deputy Mayor Fuel?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to thank Tracy for all your work in working with the curling board, and the curling board members who are here. If you could extend my thanks on behalf of the council for all the hours that you gentlemen and ladies put in as far as running this recreational facility and basically taking it off the town's hands as far as solid, good management. And I think the very fact that you have 65, at least about 65 juniors. Yeah, maxed out. If you've maxed out at your juniors at that number, you've got those kinds of kids that are involved in another recreational program. It's another reason why it shows that there are things to do in Strathmore for kids if they want to get involved. And so I thank you for all your time that you've put in.
Further discussion? My discussion will include one comment. Is the curling club prepared to provide full financial statements to the town at the end of each fiscal year?
Yes, sorry, I didn't include that in the report. In the report that they submitted to us, they indicated that they would be.
They will be doing it each year. Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Did you want to reread your motion, or do we need to?
I think everybody's got it.
Everybody got it? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve the lease for 5 years with an option for an additional 5 years. All in favor? Carried.
You got
And
it
thank
right,
you.
Ms. Sawatsky. Thank you. You can step in at any time.
Next item on our agenda is Mr. Martin Duputre wishes to address
Deputy.
council. Sir, you have the floor.
Good evening, Your Worship,
Good
Council.
evening.
I know you guys had the care ladies up here. And I'm gonna run you through something. Mr. Sopel, I'm gonna apologize right now. I'm gonna go back 25 years in an accident that I was involved with as a trucker, hauling my own material. And it involves 7 cars. It's gonna kill 4 people. It's going to leave 17 kids with non-life-threatening injuries, one 3-year-old as a paraplegic, one 4-year-old as a quadriplegic. The liability of transporting people is all about insurance, your proper driver's license, and a proper registration. When this accident happened on the QE2, January 7th, or August 7th, 1991, it was a very foggy day, and we didn't know we were in the construction zone because Alberta government had hired Richardson Brothers Contracting to do repairs to Highway 2, and at 7:05 in the morning, they hadn't uncovered the signs. They all had plastic bags over them. So the speed limit was still 110 kilometers, even though I'm doing 87 because of the fog. And all of a sudden, the girl screamed. She was the flag girl. And on my left, there's 6 cars parked. On my right, there's 1. The little silver car on the right had passed me at 5 minutes to 7. And by 7:15, this thing is going to get totally demolished. When the car goes underneath the truck, hooks the trailer hooks left, and it opens those 6 cars up like a knife going through butter. The one vehicle there is a 12-passenger Ford Econoline van with 15 baseball players in it and a coach. He's improperly licensed. He's improperly registered. He's illegally conveying kids with no insurance. He will get sued for $2 million 5 years down the road. I'm going to face 8 different criminal charges. June 16th, I'm going to court. This is a 6-week trial, and they throw it out of court at the end of July. The total lawsuit is $8.5 million for liabilities. The truck and trailer together have $3 million. I have another $500,000 for conveyance of persons. You guys, according to Alberta standards of insurance, there's no way you can haul anybody who is paying you any kind of monies. In paragraph 6, C and D both specify if you are taking money of any kind, you're a taxi cab under the Alberta insurance standards. Under the registration policy of Alberta, it's also stated. In our own bylaw, it states you have to have a Class 4 license. According to the Alberta Transportation, in a phone call 3 weeks ago with Alberta Transportation, they specified that if there's a taxi bylaw within a community, it is the safety standard of that community, and everybody must abide by that safety standard. There's no exemptions. None. Non-profit, profit, it don't matter. So this taxi bylaw, which says that we're going to exempt non-profit, doesn't work. That man in that white economy van, just like the care drivers, tried to be a nice guy, and it cost him everything. Are we prepared to put innocent people in a situation taking care of people because we can't, as a council and taxi cab companies, fulfill our mandate together? So we're going to let the CARE program have innocent people in a situation? Ladies and gentlemen, it ain't going to work.
Okay, are you prepared for questions?
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Fuel?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. My question is maybe clarification more than a question, but I understand what you're saying about this coach who's driving 12 players who didn't have insurance, didn't have proper registration, license. But we've just heard a report from CARE saying that they screen all their drivers. So all their drivers have to have an up-to-date and proper license. They examine their driving record. Their insurance has to be what they should have. So it's a whole different situation than that guy who didn't have insurance and proper registration.
It's not a different situation, Pat.
It's a different situation because they're saying that they're covered. They have the coverage. You're saying that.
That guy was getting paid as well.
Don't interrupt, please. He's allowed to talk, and then you can respond.
You gave us the example of a horrendous accident and how this poor guy is going to get sued because he doesn't have all this stuff. CARE is saying their drivers have all those things, and they are screened. So they will be covered by insurance, and you're saying that the Alberta, whatever, says that we cannot be covered, and then we get this document saying that the Insurance Bureau of Canada says that they don't have, that they can be covered, that they don't have to have, you don't need additional service according to the international or to the Insurance Bureau of Canada. So we're hearing different information. However, what I do want to say is the example of the white van where he's hung out to dry is a totally different situation than the drivers whose insurance is examined, their driver abstract, their license is all examined. It's a different situation than the guy who volunteered and didn't have the stuff he should have had. So I'm saying they're covered. And if we're going to have to find out, I suppose, which of the information is taking precedent as far as whether it's the Insurance Bureau of Canada or whether it's the Alberta one that you mentioned.
Well, I'll have to find out who's top dog, I guess.
I guess
mean,
so.
that's the way that works. But I know that the CARE drivers don't have a proper driver's license to convey people, and they're getting money.
But that's because
matter
you're
how-
saying they have to have a driver's license level 4, right? That's what you're saying. That's what you're saying our bylaw currently states?
Yeah.
That they must have a level 4, or driver's license 4.
Councillor Sobel?
Just clarification. Marty, can you just, is it six, did you say 6C and D of the Alberta Insurance Standards?
I believe it's paragraph 6, C and D of the Alberta Standards of Insurance.
I'm looking, I'm not
I got
I'm
it.
not seeing it.
I got it from my insurance broker.
Is this an act, is this a provincial act, you know?
I'm not 100% sure. All I know is I got it emailed to me from my insurance broker, and
And it's standards of insurance.
I looked up the Alberta Standards of Insurance.
I think Rocky's got
Alberta, I
a
can't
copy of
find
it right there.
Alberta Standard Automobile Policy?
Yep.
What section are you talking about, Marty?
I think it's paragraph 6.
Paragraph 6, am I allowed to speak?
Please.
Paragraph 6 talks, the section is 2 or more automobiles.
I know it's on there.
So, which one do you want?
I think you might be looking at paragraph 8,
Well, that could be.
section C, if you want me to read the stuff.
Please.
The automobile is used as a taxi, cab, public omnibus, livery, jitney, or sightseeing conveyance, or for carrying passengers for compensation or hire, provided that the following uses shall not be deemed to be the carrying of passengers for compensation or hire. 1 is the use by the insured of his automobile for the carriage of another person in return for the insured's carriage in the automobile of the other person. 2, the occasional and infrequent use by the insured of the automobile for the carriage of another person who shares the cost of the trip. 3, the use by the insured of his automobile for the carriage of a temporary or permanent domestic servant or the insured's spouse or adult interdependent partner. 4, the occasional and infrequent use by the insured of the automobile for the transportation of children to or from activities conducted as part of an educational program. And number 5, the use by an insured of the automobile for the carriage of a client or a customer or a prospective client or customer.
Are they exempting? Is that what?
No.
Just before Your Worship, the only comment I would make, I don't know what this is. This seems to be a private company's insurance policy, which I would suggest is really irrelevant. I thought we were dealing with a provincial statute or something, but that doesn't appear to be so.
Okay, thank
I
you.
have no further questions on it, thank you.
Where's the cover sheet, Rocky? It's right on the cover sheet.
Oh, I read that.
Alberta Standards.
Automobile policy.
Policy.
Alberta Standards automobile policies.
Councillor Graychalk?
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. Thanks, Marty. We had legal counsel look at the bylaw.
Your worship, portions of the bylaw, but not the entire bylaw.
Pardon me?
Legal counsel has looked at portions of the bylaw in regard to the nonprofit definition and exemption from the bylaw, but that is it. No other portions.
Thank you.
No further questions? Okay. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. Next item on our agenda is bylaw 1614, taxi bylaw. Legislative services, please.
Your worship. I'm going to review a little bit of the history of the taxi bylaw because it's kind of been a while, so I'm going to speak to council about that. Since September of 2015, council has been considering passing a new taxi bylaw to regulate taxi and limousine companies within the town of Strathmore. This item arose out of concerns expressed to council and to administration from the public and local enforcement about the condition of vehicles being used by local taxi companies, the lack of compliance with standards set in the bylaw, the use of loopholes being used by taxi companies to avoid compliance with the taxi bylaw, and the lack of tools available to enforcement to deal with such issues. When investigating the concerns, it became clear to administration that there was a lack of tools available to local enforcement to address those concerns and to enforce compliance with the bylaw. All in all, the current bylaw is outdated and ineffective. Because of the shortfalls within the bylaw, administration was instructed by council to draft a new taxi bylaw for council's consideration. Administration investigated taxi bylaws from other communities within the province to see how the legislation worked within those communities and how similar legislation could be applied to the concerns that we had with the taxi industry in Strathmore. Administration decided to use the City of Airdrie's bylaw as a template for Strathmore, as it was indicated to us by Airdrie staff that the bylaw was working well for regulating the services within the community. The bylaw was altered to fit Strathmore and to be fair to the services that were already here. For example, we were not legislating that taxi companies must have vehicles no older than 10 years old. We were not legislating that all vehicles must be painted the same color, and we were not requiring taxis to be metered, among other considerations. We simply wanted to ensure that all vehicles operating in a taxi or limousine business were mechanically sound, clean, and identifiable, and that all drivers employed by taxi or limousine brokers were responsible for the safety of those using their services. After the bylaw had been drafted, administration held consultations with local taxi companies and local law enforcement to review the drafted bylaw. All parties were asked to participate in this process and were encouraged to speak freely about their thoughts on the proposed bylaw. We also met separately with one of the taxi companies in town to discuss the draft bylaw. Those comments and concerns brought up within those meetings were taken into consideration, and the completed draft was taken to the Policy Review Committee for approval. On March 2nd, the committee forwarded the bylaw to council for first reading. At that time, Mr. Deputer spoke with council about further concerns that he had with the drafted bylaw. At this point, it is important to note that there haven't ever been any other concerns brought forward to council by any other taxi companies in town. After first reading, council instructed administration to come back with more information to address Mr. Deputer's concerns. After lengthy consultation with all of the parties involved, we brought back information to council to address those concerns, and it was determined that most of the concerns were not within the jurisdiction, the scope, or the capability of the town of Strathmore. That included the requirement for taxis to have debit machines and the development of a taxi commission, as well as compliance with workers' compensation. There were, however, some concessions made, and the original requirement that we had for drivers to supply handicap-accessible vehicles was removed. Administration was confident that the concerns brought forward were properly investigated and addressed. The bylaw then came back to council for second reading. At that time, Councillor Blockland relayed a new concern of Mr. Deputer's, which was that, in the opinion of Mr. Deputer, the town would have to apply the taxi bylaw to the newly developed care program if it was passed. Council then defeated the taxi bylaw at second reading due to the uncertainty. Since that time, Council has been presented with further information about the care program, as was indicated earlier this evening. It has been determined that the program would not fall under the same status as a for-profit commercial taxi or limousine business. The program has their own standards and requirements as indicated in their presentation. Since the defeat of the draft bylaw 1527, Councillor Fuel has indicated his desire to reconsider the bylaw for second reading. A notice of motion was given to reconsider the motion to give bylaw number 1527 15-27, second reading at this meeting tonight. Unfortunately, after further investigation, reconsidering a motion for reading on a bylaw is not allowed for under the MGA because when a bylaw is defeated, all previous readings to that bylaw are rescinded. Therefore, we need to start over and council needs to consider a new bylaw. So now we are bringing forward the attached drafted taxi bylaw number 1614 for council's consideration. In recent weeks, as mentioned earlier, there has been much discussion around the application of a taxi bylaw on nonprofit organizations who are running transportation services for those in need. To be very clear, bylaw 1614 addresses this issue by exempting these programs from the bylaw and defining who the taxi bylaw applies to, which is taxi and limousine companies. This bylaw defines broker and chauffeur responsibilities and sets standards for vehicles used in a taxi or limousine business. The bylaw also creates the position of Chief License Inspector, who will ensure that all brokers, chauffeurs, and vehicles operating within a taxi or limousine business are meeting the standards that are being set within the bylaw. Mechanical and physical standards for vehicles being used in a taxi or limousine business are better defined for all parties involved, and there are measures indicated in the bylaw that enforcement can take to ensure that taxis and limousines are meeting these requirements. Administration is aware that the new bylaw will require the brokers to make some changes and will be allowing a grace period to January 31st, 2017 to allow time for companies to comply with the bylaw. In the end, we're confident that the concerns brought forward by the public and local enforcement are legitimate, and that those concerns have been addressed within this drafted bylaw. We are also confident that the concerns brought forward by the taxi industry have been investigated and addressed appropriately. In closing, this bylaw will ensure that all those who use taxi and limousine services in Strathmore can be confident that they are getting into a safe, clean vehicle with a driver who is trustworthy and responsible. With that, administration is recommending that council give all three readings to the new bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Fuel?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through the chair, just a couple of points and then a question. One of the pitfalls that we have is that Mr. Deputer, I don't believe you agree with what we are saying as far as what makes up a taxi and what doesn't. I believe you feel that the care drivers, when they operate their vehicle, are operating a taxi. And what they're saying is that, based on the commercial driver's guide, a motor vehicle is not for hire when the operator drives a private passenger vehicle for the transportation of passengers on an incidental or occasional basis and receives compensation in respect of the transportation of those passengers only in one or more of the following forms. And then they give three things. My point is, if this commercial driver's guide excludes care as an organization, they don't have to have a Class 4 license then, because they're not seen, they're not defined as a taxi. That's the stumbling point we're here, because you feel they're a taxi. We're saying the information given us is saying that they are not a taxi as volunteer drivers. Second thing is you had the tragic example from Highway 2, which I know is horrible. Again, my comment is that man who drove the van did not have proper license, proper insurance registration. CARE has already addressed that part of the situation, saying they screen all their drivers for all of those things. So the two don't match. And I just want to finish, well, one thing I'm going to ask is then, do you need me to withdraw my motion to bring back? You might have to help me with wording, sorry.
Yes, Your Worship, you'll just withdraw your notice of motion.
Okay, so I'll make that, I'll just do that now. I'll withdraw my notice of motion for that. And I guess the very last thing I wanted to end with is a question. And having talked to the head of our bylaw officers, I don't know if you're aware of this, Marty, but I asked the head of our bylaw officers, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most important to bring in this new taxi bylaw, she said a 10. So if the head of bylaw is telling me as a councillor that this is that important for the people of Strathmore, I just want to finish then with one question. Why would this new taxi bylaw be a bad thing for Strathmore residents? Would you be able to answer that?
Do you want to, but if you want to reply to the question, and seeing as Councillor Fuel, or Deputy Mayor Fuel has asked him the question directly, I will allow
I
him
just
to
wanted
speak.
to know why you think the taxi bylaw, the new one that we're proposing, is
Let's go first with the fella in the white van with 12 passengers. You just stated it's incidental.
it's incidental.
He's incidental too. He does it once in a blue moon. These people are going to do it for how often? That's not incidental anymore. That's
But
point number one.
According to this,
Don't interrupt. Let him finish.
Okay? And I'm with you 100%, and Mrs. Spooks. We need a taxi bylaw. We need a taxi bylaw that's fair to everybody, okay, including the CARE program. We have to make sure that we, as a town, are not liable for something that happens to these drivers and the people that are in those cars. Because I'm not so sure, looking at what you have and what CARE has and what we have for an Alberta standard, something isn't jiving. Somewhere, we better do some investigating and get this thing straightened out before we go anywhere. Because Alberta tells you one thing, Canada standard tells you another thing.
Was your question answered, Deputy Mayor Fuel?
not really. I guess, Marty, my question was, like, I understand that we have differing things here, but this is a national body, the Insurance Bureau of Canada. My question was, do you feel this new taxi bylaw is good for Strathmore residents?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want the nonprofit out of it. Because now, not even just a care program. What happens when you guys decide to cut on the handy bus, and all of a sudden we got no legal driver there? Because the nonprofit covers everybody. Somewhere we have to get this thing defined at what we're doing. Because it can go to the youth club too.
But the youth
See,
club is-
according to Alberta Transportation, with a phone call with Alberta Transportation, they clearly stated that if we have a taxi bylaw in our community, that everybody has to abide by that taxi
But
bylaw.
the youth club is not operating as a taxi.
No,
I mean,
but
they-
it's
but-
still conveyance of persons.
But their drivers are screened for all those things too, and they're not charging each kid as they get on for a set fee across town. It's all part of their program. They've got a driver lined up who's been screened for everything. So if they're not paying, I don't understand why that's a
I'm not-
taxi.
I'm not saying that it's a taxi.
And why should it
but
be covered
according
by
to
the
Alberta-
taxi bylaw?
I'm just saying what Alberta Transportation is telling us. That everybody has to be on a level playing field.
Okay.
Because that's our safety standard, is a taxi bylaw.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a taxi bylaw in front of us, and we have a recommendation from administration. Do we have any further questions?
Just a clarification, Your Worship, to administration. You said that there was a lead-in of till the end of this year for compliance issues?
Yes, Your Worship. The draft bylaw indicates the date of January 31st, 2017.
Greatest single complaint that I've received, made no secret of that, regarding Strathmore public conveyances is related to Schedule A smoking in the vehicles. And I'm just wondering, Marty, I really appreciate that you've said that we need the bylaw, and but when there's been smoking in a vehicle and now there can't be, it takes a long time to get it out, and I'm wondering how that will work, because I don't know how you enforce that.
Further questions? Seeing none, I'll take a motion.
Worship, I'd move the council give first reading to bylaw number 16-14, the taxi bylaw.
We have a motion for council to give first reading to bylaw 1614, taxi bylaw. All in favor? Carried.
Your worship, I would move that council, I lost the word.
Say a second reading, right here.
Oh, I was, sorry. Your worship, I'd move that council give second reading to bylaw number 16-14, taxi bylaw.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? Councillor Blokeland?
Thank you, Your Worship. Maybe administration can clarify something for me too. Since bylaw 1527 was defeated, I'm assuming bylaw 825 is still in effect?
Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you. So bylaw number 825, page 2, section G states anyone for hire in the town of Strathmore for a fee is a taxi cab. My concern is, and again, I'm not against a taxi bylaw either, but we have to have the right one in place here. My concern is with this bylaw, by specifically removing section 2.1 brackets O, we are not creating a level playing field here. We're not even realizing our own town of Strathmore mandate where we provide access and safety. I really can't honestly see how we can push this through.
Did you have
We
something?
need more work on this.
Your Worship, I just have a little clarification to make. I think the key here is the definition of for hire. The information brought forward by the CARE program tonight indicated examples where those people are not for hire. The volunteers are not for hire. For hire applies to companies like taxi companies, limousines, where it is their business to transport people for a fee to make a profit. The definition for hire would not apply to the CARE program.
And so allow me to just clarify what you're saying. So receiving payment for mileage is not receiving a fee.
Correct.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Fuel, did you have something?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just as far as safety and public safety is concerned, if the head of our peace officers is saying that this is a number 10 out of 10 as far as importance in bringing this bylaw in to protect Strathmore's residents, to make sure the cabs are clean, smoke-free, that they're checked mechanically twice a year. If we're talking about what's best for the Strathmore residents and the safety and health of Strathmore residents, this bylaw is important. We've already established that CARE is not a for-profit organization, and that they and groups like the Youth Club do screen their drivers, do check for all the proper records and licenses and insurance. I think if we're trying to look out what's best for our Strathmore residents, this bylaw needs to happen. It's been told to us by the people who have the most involvement in protecting and looking after our citizens. It's hard for me to go against and disregard the head of our peace officers when she says how important passing this new bylaw is for our residents. And that's who we're supposed to make decisions on, is based on what's the good of the general community, what's best for the most of Strathmore. And having their safety and health is really important. So I'm totally in favor of this bylaw now.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Worship. I certainly understand Mr. Deputer's concerns about having proper insurance and improving mitigating the circumstances of liability by improving insurance levels. And that's certainly up to individuals. And I know that after 35 years in the education business, there are certain risks that are mitigated by having Class 4 driver's licenses, and some school divisions opt for sure to do that. And but in terms of doing the for hire and what it means to be for hire, one of the best sites that I found when I was doing research in this was with the Victoria Taxi Commission, and they outline pretty much what Ms. Swatsky has outlined for us today in terms of who actually is for hire and who isn't. And I think, when I draw an analogy, schools charge service fees for phys ed, and part of that is related to transportation. But it is absolutely important to think that that's for profit. It can't be. And it's overseen by the province. And so that could be looked at in the same way that the CARE program is. And so I draw an analogy between the two, and would hope that that would never be competition for a viable business in our community. Secondly, if we have groups like Uber and other smaller companies coming into this community, I would expect that they would be held to exactly the same standard because they're clearly for hire. So I am in favor of this bylaw, and I appreciate the rigor that you've put us through. It hasn't been pleasant, but it's been useful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a motion, no further discussion? We have a motion for second reading of bylaw 16-14, taxi bylaw. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Your Worship, I'd move that council give unanimous consent to third reading of bylaw number 16-14, taxi bylaw.
We have a motion for council to give unanimous consent to third reading of bylaw 16-14, the taxi bylaw. All in favor? Opposed? Show one opposed, please. Third reading will have to be presented at a later date, am I correct? Thank you.
Yep.
Next item on our agenda is annexation update from the County of Wheatland Response, Planning and Development, please. Good evening, sir. Sorry for the delay.
Good evening, Your Worship. I think my report is pretty self-explanatory. We received a letter from the county back in August saying that they had no objections to the annexation proposal of Oxbow lands, and so we'll be putting together a response to the consultants probably by the end of the week.
Okay.
So I'd move that council accept the county's letter for information purposes.
Thank you. We have a motion to accept the letter from the county for information purposes. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And administration, would you like to address 7.2 FCSS assessment report extension request?
Yes, Your Worship. Council, at the meeting, I believe in August, instructed administration to bring forward a report on the recommendations of the FCSS needs assessment. Administration is asking for an extension from council on that, just for more work on the report.
Your Worship, I move that council grant an extension to FCSS to report back on a plan for the recommendation indicated in the FCSS needs assessment.
May I ask a question?
Well, maybe you're going to ask.
And I'm just wondering, are we going to be putting a date to this?
Bless you, bless you.
Was that your question? Yep, okay.
Your Worship, may we request that the extension be to November 2nd council meeting?
So,
Friendly amendment?
Friendly amendment.
friendly amendment to November the 2nd. Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Next item, appointment of the auditors, and
Your worship, I would move that council postpone the appointment of the auditors to the October 19th, 2016 regular council meeting.
Thank you. We have a motion to postpone the appointment of the auditors to the October 19th, 2016 council meeting. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is 8.2, Ag Grounds Water Service Metering and Infrastructure. Sir, we welcome you forward.
Excuse me.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. This evening, the Infrastructure Department is bringing forward the Ag Grounds Water Service Metering Request for Decision. Providing safe water to the residents and businesses of the town of Strathmore is a responsibility of the municipality. We have been working to ensure that delivering water is done in a responsible and efficient manner. With these items in mind, the work to confirm water consumption and establish the components of our distribution system on the Ag Grounds has been undertaken. This initiative has been called the Ag Grounds Water Metering Project. On September 16, 2015, it was given a budget of $70,000. All North Consulting was awarded the engineering services for this project. They have designed a water meter that has a 6-inch pipe and a 1-inch pipe. The 6-inch pipe is to be utilized 2 months out of the year when the Ag Grounds are utilizing more water. The 1-inch pipe is to be used for the remainder of the year when the Ag Grounds will not be utilizing the 6-inch pipe to its full potential. Following the technical review, a final design to install all necessary metering and cross-connection protection has been proposed by All North. All North has prepared the tender package and upon closing, provided the town with an award recommendation. The scope of work based on All North design required a chamber for the 150 millimeter service, the 6-inch line, and 2 individual meters for the structures on the south side of the Ag Grounds. All North delivered their recommendation letter on September 14th and states that Blackie Site Works Limited be awarded with a bid of $33,263 for the construction portion, and Corex with a bid of $63,650 for the chamber itself. All North recommends that the town award the project to Blackie and Corex, and quotations have been gathered to complete the meter installation. Based on quotations, it will exceed the existing budget. Below is a chart for a revised working cost of the project itself. As you can see in the first column, that's the estimate from September 16, 2015 that was approved at $70,000. Next to that, you can see the quotes that we've received for the individual items. The metering vault is the chamber that contains all the vault equipment, the back check valves, all that kind of thing, all those things, sorry. Below is also the engineering fees, and the construction cost that you see is to actually install the chamber itself into the ground and into the water system that we have. Currently, we have spent to date approximately $12,000 in engineering fees, and approximately $7,000 in construction fees for some valves that needed to be placed in order to have this project move forward. Based on the annual water usage estimate provided by All North and the current annual billing amount, we estimate that we will be able to recuperate, if we wish, a cost for the installation of the water meter in 2 to 3 years. An estimated 29,000 cubic meters of water will be accounted for every year once the water meter is installed. That's an estimate, but that's what we're using. We've provided 2 alternatives. The first alternative is continuing with unmetered potable water to the Ag Grounds. It does not meet or does not align with the town's desire to manage and conserve water that would minimize rates from the City of Calgary. It is imperative to ensure that the safety of the town's water supply is protected by making sure that cross connections to non-potable water supplies do not exist. I'm going to add a little bit to this alternative as well. It's not in the document. Recently, Alberta Environment did a water assessment with EPCOR in the town. One of the items that was discussed was capturing water loss within the town's boundaries. Metering or not metering certain systems is a big item on Alberta Environment's inspection. That was just recently, so that's why it wasn't on this report. Our second alternative is continue with the project and install the water meters and associated piping connections to the Ag Grounds water service, which will ensure that water usage is determined and that the town's water system is protected. An increase to the budget to complete the project is recommended. So our recommendation to council is that council approve infrastructure to continue with the project and award the Ag Grounds Water Service Metering Project to Blackie Site Works and Corex and increase the budget to $122,908 based on all those recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. My first question to the director is, when Alberta Environment and EPCOR were doing this, did they look at any other issues of water capture other than non-metering?
Alberta Environment is looking, they look for programs to capture water loss. We at current do not have a program as such. Currently, the town is running a metering program where we are identifying locations where metering services do not exist. This is one of the locations. There are more identified, so that would be another day.
When they examine our demographic, do they see water loss, underground water loss? Is that one of the things that they're also going to look at?
They don't technically look at it, I don't believe, but we would be required to identify that as a program. So that would be part of the water loss recovery program that the town should be introducing or.
Sorry, I poked myself in the eye.
Programs for people like me?
Are you okay?
I'm crying. And Hetty had to see.
Oh my gosh, I saw it.
I know you did.
Oh,
Sorry.
where was I? Sorry. I feel bad. Yeah. So there is other aspects that we could look at that, but they are not necessarily going to look for us, but they may bridge us to programs that would aid us in doing this. Is that correct?
I would say that metering of your lines is one aspect of monitoring your water loss or controlling that aspect. I will say that also part of this metering is not only for Alberta Environment, but it's also part of our master servicing agreement with the city of Calgary, for this Calgary Regional Water Line.
So they have an obligation, you're saying?
We have an obligation.
We have an obligation.
To identify water usage in the town and identify possible water loss areas. This would be part of that as well.
Because there are water wizards in our community who believe that they know where we're losing water, and they may be correct. So, addition to that, so have you been in talks with the Ag Society as to what this is going to mean for their book of business into the future? Because we certainly, and the reason I ask the question, and it might be an unfair one to you, and it might be not one that you have to answer because it's not in your purview, but certainly this council and councils previous have worked in close partnership and collaboration with the Agricultural Society. So that is the reason that I asked the question.
I will answer to the best of my knowledge on this portion. This recommendation does not include anything about further charging or updating billing to the Ag Society. I am only concerned in water usage in the town.
So-
And protection of our city.
Perfect. So we're going to meter the water. It doesn't necessarily translate into additional charges to the Ag Society at this point.
That would be a different.
A different discussion. Thank you very much.
Department's discussion.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Graychuk?
Yeah, thank you. Mine are more comments, and just because I was manager there for a few years, and I do have some concerns, and I'm sure that you've looked into them, or maybe not, but there's a well on the site. I'm assuming that well's going to be disconnected, or, because it's hooked to the system.
I haven't identified whether or not the well will be disconnected, but the backflow prevention and cross-connection prevention in the system that we're installing would protect the system on coming forward onto our location. We haven't addressed the wells or whether or not they should be disconnected. That would be in reference to a water bylaw.
Because, I hate to say this, but it was put together by a bunch of good intentional people, and there's pipes running and hooked in various directions from all over. And the other second thing is that there's another pipe coming from the town on the east side of, our west side of the Ball Diamonds that's hooked direct, so I'm sure that you've checked into all this, and so that we don't get liable or something. I don't know what's gonna happen here, but.
Correct. Part of this, this is the major component of what you're mentioning. We did investigate as far as we could the systems and the lines entering into. I can wait. Entering into the ag grounds. We've identified 3 so far. This one is the the main line. This would be this is the 6-inch. This is the one we wanted to focus on first, and it would be the most substantial change. The other lines in question would be identified later and could be addressed differently.
The reason I'm bringing all this up is I have major concerns about, there's pipes hooked to everything here, and there's no schematics or anything. So is there gonna be more costs coming later for us to shut off and dig pipes and do all kinds of stuff related to this?
Yeah, we do not predict any further extensive costs in the future. From our investigation, the line to the east that feeds a few buildings on site of the ag grounds, those sites could be managed in the building as per our water bylaws. This location, this pipe and the pipe to the west are the two that are identified as not having any backflow prevention or safety protocols, as well as no metering device, and that's what we're addressing with this one, this line in particular.
In your usage, you got, I'm sure you're very much aware that there is a water meter already on the grounds.
Not that we know of.
Yeah, there is in the washroom. We had to pay for it, I know that. So there's a water meter already.
Okay.
And secondly, and I'm not trying to be smart ass, I'm just trying to help out here. You say 2 months a year when the greatest usage is from April to October, when all the trailers are hooked up to water. So it's really 6 months or 5.5.
The 2 month period that the 6-inch line is fully used to its potential was identified based on, because we don't have it metered, is based on discharge rates and what we predict now. Yes, it could be more, but we've identified that July and August are the highest uses. Again, because we have no device for metering water going in or sanitary coming out, it's more of a estimate than anything.
But they do hook up from April 1st, or turn on the water April 1st to October 15th. And I'm not sure your 2-inch line will handle it because they really use water then.
Either way, the system is built for both. It's not.
I'm not trying to tell you what to do, don't get me wrong.
No, it would be addressed. This system would be able to handle it no matter how often they needed to use the 6-inch portion. It's just a matter of.
But please check out, thank you, and please check out all those other hookups. I mean, they're all over the place.
Yes.
Thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Are you going to ask the budget question?
Yeah, I can ask the budget question.
Okay, thank you.
There's no indication as to where the funding is. Is this already planned for in the budget, or do we have to do the financial stabilization? Okay, thank you.
Or wait
This
till
was brought forward.
2017.
The 70,000 was brought forward.
Yes.
I just didn't have the resolution or the
Pardon?
presentation, but it would have probably been included in that.
Well, 70,000 was likely included in the budget, but we're going from 70 to 122.
But what's the timeline?
And, okay, yeah, and in regards to that, the timeline, if it's in next year's budget, then we don't have to take it out of financial stabilization.
What, do you plan on doing this right away?
The timeline based on quotes, we were planning on awarding immediately. The plan for construction was all based on delivery of the items and weather. We were going to put in, when we discussed it with the construction contractor, we were going to discuss a possibility of not actually installing the device until the spring. But if we wait much longer, the quotes would then be void and we'd have to go for quotes again.
Do it out of financial stabilization.
Maybe cheaper.
We're at 1.2 million now.
Yeah.
Why don't we
I
just
could
wait?
comment on that as well. This will be the second time we've gone for quotes on this project. In between the two, we've also investigated any possible money savings that we could. Between the two quoting periods, several months ago, we were preparing to come to council and we were asked to investigate possible money savings. The cost has increased $6,000 or so between that time. I will not predict the contractor's quotes.
So,
Just
go
one more
ahead,
question.
Councillor Graychuk, go ahead.
So you have been in consultation with the Ag Society regarding all this?
The town has been discussing this with the Ag Society for, I believe, the last couple of years. Different directors of the engineering department and CAOs were in discussion, and letters have been sent back and forth before this was approved to go to tender or to get a design and quote. My recollection or my instruction was that that was finalized and that we were approved to go forward with quoting and design.
Because it is private property, so you'd have to get some sort of agreement to.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, thank you.
I believe that was already made, but
Councillor Peterson.
I think there's some wisdom in waiting and putting this in next year's budget and waiting for the quote to go forward then. I know there's some urgency in wanting to make sure that we are responsible with our water losses. But I'd feel more comfortable if the Ag Society was fully cognizant of what was happening and that the agreements with them were in place and that we could put this into our budget without going to increase our financial stabilization more.
Sir, you can also respond to that if there's some reason why there's some urgency.
the urgency is only to identify the loss itself. I will comment that the Ag Society has been contacted in this process, and we wouldn't have moved forward with this unless we were instructed to after the approvals were in place. As far as holding off to another budget cycle, that's council's decision. My urgency is to protect the system and identify the loss as per some of our agreements. That's why I'm presenting it now.
Go ahead, sir.
I normally would not have any concern about putting it off, but when we start using words like cross connections and stuff, and I know nothing's happened, but I think there is an urgency to get this done because of the potential, and even as rare as it is, I believe that, I mean, that's the magic words for me is cross connections, and from what I understand from Councillor Graychuk, there's a lot of stuff going on there, so I just as soon see this done sooner than later.
Councillor Peterson.
And I have no problem with it going forward now. My only question is that if Alberta Environment and EPCAR are already involved, and we know that we have water losses, and we want to capture that water loss, and we know that it's in places other than just metering, it would seem to me that it would make sense to have a more holistic plan going forward that would cover the community. And I might be just so off base with this because I'm not an engineer, but I think it's worthwhile spending the money. I agree with Councillor Sobel. If we can capture water loss at any rate, especially at this quantity, when you're talking about 29,000 cubic meters of water, that's a lot of baths, and I think that it's worth it. So I stand to certainly listen to the wisdom of the council, but I always think of this as a bigger problem. And I've heard long-term residents of Strathmore say that they believe that there's underground water loss north of the ranch area, and they've identified another spot in the Strathaven area, and so I think those are worthwhile pursuing and looking at. But I don't know about the urgency, and if we can go ahead on this one, I guess it doesn't prevent us from continuing to look at a more holistic plan. I'm open either way. But I just think that it would be good to have a really good overview of where we're going.
Go ahead, Councillor Graychuk.
I would just feel more comfortable if you had an agreement with the Ag Society. I've dealt with them and been there, and I think you should really look into a lot more of the problems that are there.
Go ahead, sir.
Through the chair, if I may, we'll certainly make sure that we have a concurrence of the Ag Society. We're certainly want to endeavor to support this project and get it across the finish line.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm prepared to make the motion, Your Honor.
Well, the question I have is how much will be coming out of financial stabilization?
What isn't in our budget?
Well, 70 minus 122, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you can.
Yeah, I'll put that in. I have
Okay,
it.
thank you.
I would move that council approve infrastructure to continue with the project and award the Ag Grounds Water Service Metering Project to Blackie Site Works Limited and Corix, and increase the budget to $122,908 plus GST with the difference in the budgeted amount and the amount noted in the recommendation to come from financial stabilization, and that this quote is based on All North's recommendation.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Opposed?
One opposed. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And stick around. We have RRFB installation at Park Lane Drive and Park Lane Way. You have the floor, sir.
The RRFB installation recommendation was brought to council at the previous, last council meeting on September 7th. And council had a question about maybe gathering some fees from one of the developers future developers nearby. We deferred that question so that we may confirm with our Director of Planning, Werner Fisher. I had a discussion with Werner, and he provided me with a summary of our discussion and comments. So I will read the final comment. Recognizing that the development permit are beyond the development permit has been approved for that location already, and that recognizing that the improvements are beyond the developer's land and benefit the owner of the convenience store, I believe it would be inappropriate to ask the new owners to bear any further costs. That was a quote from our director, Werner Fisher, on that discussion. So tonight, I am bringing forward the RFB installation again, with the understanding that we would not be looking for further or any fees from the developer next door.
Thank you.
Would you like me to go through the recommendation?
No, it's the same recommendation that was last.
Same.
Last. And are there any questions? Okay, I'll take a motion, and then I think you want to read something in?
Yeah,
Okay,
please.
I'll take the motion first, if that's okay.
Okay. I can do that.
So, who wants to make the motion?
Your worship, I move that council approve infrastructure to proceed with option 2 for RRFB installation at Parkland Drive and Parkland Way with an estimated budget of $48,000 plus GST.
Thank you very much. I have a motion on the floor. And discussion. Councilor Blokeland?
Thank you, your worship. I have a letter here that I got this afternoon, just a short letter I'll read out. It comes from Mary Ellen. She's a long-term employee from High Hope. Obviously, she sees a lot of stuff there a day, 5, 6 days a week while she's working. She writes in here, in regards to the crosswalk by High Ho Gas, on an average, I have customers, seniors, and other complaints of almost being hit 2 or 3 times a week. To me, this is a large amount of people. Some of them cry, some are angry. She writes, does someone have to die or get hurt bad? I hope not. Everyone understands there's a need for this. Please make it happen quick. Just last week, I had a mentally challenged man, and he actually walked into my bakery and told me the same thing here. He was barely missed by 2 cars, and he was crying. The cars went by both sides of him as he was halfway in the crosswalk across the street. I am begging you to get this project finished, started and finished. I adore all the seniors and kids crossing in such a dangerous area. And that is a dangerous area. When you come around that curve there, it's a blind curve. She writes in here, before someone gets seriously hurt or worse. I work at Hi-Ho, so I see so much every day. And she says, thanks, Mary Ellen.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you very much.
If I may, Your Worship?
Yes.
Ask one question.
By all means.
Administration, can we, there's equally an urgency in having a crosswalk sign, and now that it was Alberta Transportation at the Sunset Haven Lodge and Waddy Lane. And I've been requesting that on that for a couple of years now, and I don't know if there's any movement on forward on that, but can I ask administration to check that one out? And, because it's also equally as dangerous, and there's a lot of old folks that cross there.
Make it a motion to direct.
That we also have a crosswalk checked or put up on the Wheatland Trail in front of Sunset Haven and I think it's Waddy Lane going west.
Before we
Yeah.
go any further with that, is that something that should be addressed by the
Alberta
traffic,
Transportation.
no, the traffic committee? Is that something you should be directing to the
I think
traffic committee?
I mean, this is important.
Go ahead.
The only comment I would make is, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, this has been investigated, but this is a Alberta transportation issue, and they've already determined that there's insufficient,
They may have determined that, but I just don't believe that they've checked out the right times on the traffic flows.
You still want to make a comment?
I don't think we'll turn that over to our group.
No,
I mean,
okay,
it's-
thank you. Okay.
I don't see why we can't check into it. I mean,
Councillor Peterson?
Councillor Graychuk and I sit on the Wheatland Housing, and so this is something that we hear about a lot, and great concerns, the same concerns that Councillor Blockland just noted here. And I think it goes part and parcel with the parking issue that you faced in that same area because of them removing the parking. And it's not a problem, and that's exacerbated the problem, because now they're parking on Waddy Lane and now having to cross. And so it is something that, for the sake of our citizens, we really need to continue to examine. And perhaps, as Councillor Graychuk said, when they last examined, when they did the traffic check the last time, it was between 2 and 4 in the afternoon.
no, it was from 10 till
Or 10 till, yeah.
10 till 1.
Yeah.
I mean, when the least traffic is. Can't we do our own counter? Do we have counters? Traffic counters?
We do have traffic counters. I don't know if we'd be allowed to place them on Alberta Transportation's highway, but we can look into that.
Thank you.
And before we advance any further, this last motion that we just passed, was that in the budget, or do we have to do financial stabilization?
I believe our last discussion on September 7th, when Mel was
Financial
present, it was
stabilization.
financial stabilization.
So the question is, does we want to make an amendment now, because the motion's already been passed?
I thought we said it in there.
No, we didn't, but you would add it as a friendly amendment. And
Okay.
Your Worship,
Yes, go ahead, sir.
just before we get away from this, are we starting on this fall, or are we gonna wait till next spring?
That's a good question. There is concrete work and asphalt work involved in this project, and there will be a lead time before we get the beacons delivered. So we couldn't order them until this, of course, was approved. Depending on the weather and when we have delivery of such items, it'll be similar to the Ag Grounds report. We will try and endeavor to get it in as fast as we can. If we can't do it before the snow flies, then we will have to postpone construction until the spring.
Okay, thank you, because I'll be getting asked at 5:30 tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
thank you, Bryce.
Next item is Canada 150 Projects, Community Services, please.
Good evening. Again. So following the passing of bylaw 16-11 for the forming of the Canada 150 Planning Committee, a call for interested community members was advertised, and the committee met for the first time on August 25th. This meeting was led as a brainstorming session for any and all ideas related to Canada 150 celebrations, including events, fundraisers, and legacy projects. One major item that came out of this initial meeting was the confusion on the parameters of Canada 150 funding opportunities. Town administration set out to identify the funding opportunities, and we contacted Heritage Canada directly. The Canada 150 Fund, which is funding opportunities for up to $50,000, had a deadline of September 30th, 2016. Being that we were already in the beginning of September, the committee met again quickly on September 6th to discuss which project and ideas best met the guidelines of the fund, whether there was any interest in applying for the funding, and who could commit time to moving the project plan forward in a short time period. At this meeting, the committee had consensus on a community arts project that would depict the history of Canada and Strathmore in a public space. It's important to note that this legacy project is only one piece of the plans discussed within the committee. A whole other section of the planning is around the celebration piece in some sort of form of a birthday party, homecoming, music festival, or inclusion of the Canada 150 theme in existing community events throughout 2017. Due to the time constraints of the grant application, the focus was put on the legacy project. The project that the committee came up with, titled The Mosaic of History, was presented by a representative of the Hope Bridges Association, and it gained support from all organizations present at the table, including the Western District Historical Society, Community Futures Wild Rose, Strathmore Legion, Strathmore District Chamber of Commerce, and a handful of community members. The Mosaic of History project would consist of a mosaic design of the Canadian flag to be installed in a public space like a park. Active participation will be encouraged through the community by inviting community members, organizations, and business to be involved in the design and placement of the mosaic tiles. A timeline of historical Canadian and Strathmore events from 1867 through to the present would be depicted on this installation. That larger installation is the first piece of the project. The second piece would be taking the Strathmore historical events and placing them individual plaques at locations that are relevant around town, thus creating a historical walking tour in Strathmore. A final phase would be doing a similar project for the Canadian historical events, placing them on individual plaques and placing them along a community path, thus creating a national historical pathway in Strathmore. This project qualifies under the Canada 150 funding guidelines. The Government of Canada created the Canada 150 funding so that all Canadians can take part in this once-in-a-generation opportunity to celebrate our heritage. The fund is administered by the Department of Canadian Heritage and is available in the form of grants and contributions for projects that support the guidelines. It's also important to note that the grant has a period of up to 30 weeks for review and approval. Requirements for the grant require authorization to submit an application by resolution. It's because the application will be going in under the name of the town of Strathmore. Resolution from council is required. And written evidence that the site has been legally appropriated and proper arrangements will be made for ongoing ownership of an installation. The recommended action listed here is the recommended action is requested by the Canada 150 Planning Committee.
Questions?
Your worship, I would move that council authorize administration to submit an application to the Canada 150 Fund for the Mosaic of History. I didn't want to try my French. Legacy project, and that council approve the installation of the Mosaic of History in Kinsman Park, and that council commit to ongoing ownership and maintenance of the site beyond installation pending approval of funding through the Canada 150 Fund.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson, you had a question?
Well, I don't know if it's a question so much as concerns. I have concerns that in number 2 under your grant application, it said that we must demonstrate that proper arrangements will be made for putting it on the site. Do we have to designate a site specific, or can we simply say that we're going to provide a site? I have a big problem with just opening up Kinsman Park and saying, we're going to put it there. That's not okay with me.
So I think in terms of the grant guidelines, we don't need to be specific.
But the town
But
can
the
guarantee a
town-
space.
But the town can guarantee a space.
Yes.
Council would have the option if you feel like we need to designate a more specific location.
Yeah.
And this will be in English too.
And English
And French.
It will be in both language, and that's a requirement of the grant funding.
So one of the other concerns that I have about this, and I support a legacy project. One of the concerns that I have about it that's been communicated to me is that many people feel that they've been dropped off email lists, that they haven't been properly consulted. And I hear the time constraints around this. But I think that there's been confusion about who's in charge, who the overall group is, who's heading up the project, people that weren't allowed to come, or that didn't know and so weren't allowed to come to the meetings, and then didn't get input. So I'm wondering if you have any,
So I can speak to that a
yeah,
little bit.
yeah.
When the first call for interest went out, it was open to anyone from the community. We did receive communications from people who couldn't attend but were still interested. I think in our haste to get a project that qualified for funding, we may have inadvertently forgotten to include some of those people who weren't at the initial meeting but still voiced interest in participating, if that makes sense.
So then my second question, because it is the town that's authorizing this, and there was no one from that we appointed 3 people from council to go on this, right?
We appointed 2 people from council.
3. We appointed councillors Fuel and Councillor Sobel.
Correct.
And then we asked that Councillor Graychuck also be appointed to sit there because of his interest in Canadian Badlands tourism.
Okay, so that would be my mistake. I misunderstood the Councillor Gaytrack piece of the appointment.
Just before we do that, I should ask council if I'm correct in that, but that's my
I
understanding.
thought that was, that he would be representing, or, you know,
Council for
with
that
the
reason,
Badlands
yeah.
Association.
We, at the request of council, we sent a letter to the Canadian Badlands requesting their contribution and input and a position. And it was my understanding that they would appoint Council Graychuck to the committee, and so I misunderstood that, and that's why he wasn't on the original communication list. Councillor Sobel attended the first meeting on August 25th. But due to the personal events in his life, was not able to attend the following meeting. At that time, we should have included Mr. Graychuck in the event, and that was an oversight on our part.
So am I correct in saying that you have now a council or a group that's overseeing this project?
We have, yes. We have community members at different levels of interest in the committee.
So I think that might be problematic moving forward because of the people that have been left off this list. And I mean, it is what it is, and I understand that.
Is there an opportunity?
So there's if there's an opportunity for a reset, I guess that's my question. Councillor Graychuck has a
Okay,
question
you
too.
you weren't looking for an answer for your last comment?
No.
No, okay. Councillor Graychuck?
Yes, at the last Badlands meeting I was at, they have some monies available for projects such as this, up to $2,500. So maybe we should make some sort of application to them.
Absolutely.
Just, I don't know what the urgency is what I'm saying.
Yeah, because of the short timeline for this specific fund and such a large amount of money, our focus did go directly to this one application. We haven't even looked at other funding options because of the needed timeline around this one. Other funding opportunities through the Canadian Badlands, through Alberta Culture, have yet to be explored.
But I'm noting that, so maybe you could check into that. Thank you.
And October 21st is the deadline, correct, on this
So-
one, as I'm looking here?
Thought you said September 30th.
It says
When we-
October 21st,
When we
2016.
contacted Canadian Heritage directly, what we were told over the phone is applications need to be in by September 30th, which contradicts what is said on the website. And so we're going by that deadline to ensure that we don't miss out.
There is an addition on the website
Mm-hmm.
that was updated 3 days ago that says
That
October
says-
21st.
And when
yeah.
we called them yesterday, they said September 30th.
Huh.
And so there's some miscommunication, and so we're going with the shorter timeline to ensure that we don't miss anything.
So the last question that's been put to me by members of the public that have an interest in this is one of funding, is related to funding. And they noted that within the grant itself, that while it is not necessary to match funds as it was with the previous grant, it is desirable.
Correct.
And so there is no guarantee that we'll get this,
Correct.
but, right.
So part of the grant application is a requirement for proven support from the community. Letters of support have been requested from the organizations that were around the table for the discussion, including the Western District Historical Society, the Legion, and the Chamber of Commerce. A presentation was also made at their request to the Lions Club for financial support to the project if funding was approved.
Yeah, well, some of the concerns I heard around that was that there were no terms of reference and at this point, and, yeah, and no budget, and so that they wouldn't consider it without that. That was
And
my
that's one of our struggles, is we don't have a budget yet, because it's still very much in its infancy.
Your worship, administration.
Go ahead, Ms. Watsky.
Your Worship, just to clarify, the approved minutes from the July 20th meeting read that Council appoint Councillor Fuel and Councillor Sobel to the Canada 150 Planning Committee, and that a request be made through the Committee to Canadian Badlands Association to appoint not more than 2 people from the Canadian Badlands Association to Strathmore Canada 150 Committee. We may have to go back and have a look.
Did I make that motion?
Yes, we may
That
have
was
to
not the motion I made.
go back and look at the video to amend that.
Yeah, well, that was not the intention of my motion. It might have been what I said, God knows, but it was not the intent of my motion.
Nobody knows what you say.
Stop it. He pokes himself in the eye, not me.
You gotta use more big words.
Okay, so we've got a motion on the floor.
I have one last thing.
One last,
It's the very last
I don't
thing, and
believe
this is
that.
a personal thing. It's
Oh, okay.
personal.
Go ahead.
A personal concern. I have a personal concern with the project as I went over it and got more information on it just today at a meeting I was at, and that is that plaques are often archaic and not useful in terms of promoting upkeep into the future. And when I see that the town and its citizens and taxpayers are going to be responsible for this into the future, one of the ways to mitigate that would be the incorporation of QR codes to do the same kinds of things, to be able to communicate the message that we're trying to get through. So that would be something that I would like to consider. And QR codes are, the Museum of Human Rights in Winnipeg has stated that QR codes are adaptable to future technology well and accommodating. So it's something that I'd like to
And I
consider.
would just note that that was brought up in the meeting, and that the plaque system was the recommendation of the group at the table.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. And.
But we want to amend it, because we
Well, I
don't
haven't
want to
read-
say Kinsman Park.
If you would like to do a friendly amendment
That'd be
before
up
I
to
read the
Councillor
motion
Fuel.
back.
So you're saying keep it open?
That the
as-
town will provide a place to install the project.
I'll accept that. Friendly amendment.
So the friendly amendment says Kinsman Park will be out and the town will be providing a location. Okay, good. No further discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tracy.
Next item on our agenda is the Alberta Development Officers Week.
Your Worship, before we move on to that item, if we can go back to item 8.3, I'm going to be a stickler and request that council make a separate motion
Thank
to
you.
withdraw the funds from financial stabilization, please.
Thank you. We will do that.
Rocky can add it on to his motion.
Pardon me?
Rocky can just add it on.
Rocky, do you want to just amend your, why don't you just make a motion that funds for this comes from stabilization? Just do it that way.
Where do we find it first?
It is on page
64.
63. 63, 64.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. I would move then that council,
It's going to be a separate motion? Yeah, a separate motion that funds for this project come from financial stabilization.
that council withdraw the funds of $48,000 plus GST from financial stabilization.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor to have the funds drawn from financial stabilization. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now we will try Alberta.
Thank you, Your
Development
Worship.
Officers Week.
Last item. So council's received a request from the development officers to proclaim September 25th to October 1st as Alberta Development Officer Week in Strathmore. And there is an attached proclamation.
So move, Your Worship.
We have a motion to proclaim the week of September 25th to October 1st, 2016 as Development Officers Week in Strathmore. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is questions between councillors, 11.1.
Thank you, Your Worship. So my first question to administration is, I'm wondering if we have received information about the Economic Development Trades Grant for the community and regional economic support. And the reason I ask that question is that the Alberta government has just allocated $30 million. The grant application opens on October the 1st, and it's significant because they're offering $26.5 million to communities for improving local business or for regional economic collaboration. I just found out about it today. It is, they're also supplying $2.2 million to regional economic development committees like Wild Rose Community Futures. So I don't want us to miss this opportunity. I think it would be really, really important based on a shared economic vision for the future. And if the initiative, I think it begins at $25,000 and or up to 50% of a project's value. And this leads into my second question in 11.2, Your Worship, if I might continue. And that is with regards to where we stand with a destination marketing organization and whether that application was made. Yes, thank you.
If I
Go
may,
ahead, sir.
through the chair.
Yep.
So the funding, matching one community benefit, the funding starts at 10K. Collaborative projects with 2 or more partners, the funding starting at 25K. Both streams require 1-to-1 matching ratio of 50% in order to execute a project. Myself and Ms. Simpson actually had a fairly detailed discussion this afternoon about the very topic of marketing and what to do and how to find linkages potentially with Canada 150, some private sector partners, and looking at some of our own internal needs as well. So I think we've got some really good thinking and at the moment, but we just want to put some edges around it, and we'd actually like to bring something back probably next month. But we still have a few details to work out, but we definitely want to access some money because it seems the Canada 150 envelopes have dried up for other special programs and initiatives. So unless something comes out really quick and they announce something, I would hazard to guess the first intake of funding, they've already identified what they want, which is why there's such a narrow window, being today's the 21st. And the first intake of October 1st. But that said, who knows?
Are you talking?
Go ahead.
Are you talking about the Canada 150 grant or the CARES grant?
The other grants.
You think that they've already allocated this?
No, I think they have because they have an intention. They're looking for very shelf-ready products to be able to be submitted in the first intake on October 1st. There's October 1st to the 30th, April 1st to the May 31st, be the second intake.
But it is October to April though, right? The first one?
Well, no, there's October 1st to November 30th.
All right, okay.
And April 1st to May 31st. And then the third intake will be announced sometime in 2017.
Because when I asked the question in the ministry, their comment was that, you know, that they knew that there were projects out there that didn't get attention in the infrastructure program. That's what they were talking about. Mm-hmm. But they also said that they're really open to collaborations, especially regional collaborations.
Yes, I believe they are.
And so that brings me to 11.2, which is movement on the Destination Marketing Organization and whether we applied to Canadian Badlands as per direction of council.
So for their pilot project?
Yes.
We did submit an application, and we have not heard back.
Okay. So in the Destination Marketing Organization, I imagine we're supposed to hear right away, right, before the end of the month? And so one of the things that I would like to think about in terms of both the Legacy Project and the CARES grant and the Destination Marketing Organization is to make application for this and connect it to the destination marketing with a clear market strategy to bring enhancement to downtown businesses through tourism and to utilize the benefits that are coming out of the volunteers that are already involved in Tracy's project, and would also bring in growth for consideration in terms of our historical heritage. So WDHS as well. And so I can leave that with you, I'm assuming?
We have some few interesting ideas, so maybe we could run them by you.
Yeah, WDHS has many interesting ideas too, and probably that's a really good place to start. And they are very, very interested in working with downtown revitalization and the Canada 150. And the Legion as well. My 11.3, I have 11.4.
Yes, keep going.
Is Aspen Creek project. I just wanted an update to know how that was going. The park, the project that Robert Breitweiser brought forward here. I had a question just today about if that was going forward.
This is Lions Park.
Yep.
Yes. Yes, they are, staff are moving. There are some details to work out.
And we'll get a report within the next couple months. And the final one was, I've been reading Municipal World. I've been enjoying it very, very much. And I had an offer to, we got it for free initially, and now it's not free, or it won't be free soon. So does the office get it in all the time? And do you get multiple copies? Is it available?
Do you wanna?
Your worship, I'm not sure how many copies we get, but we can look into it, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, if it can come out of the council budget, like that would be reasonable if it was going to continue. Oh,
It absolutely will.
Grace has something to add.
The infrastructure department is already subscribed. We subscribe to that magazine, and it's delivered to us every month. We have I think, a 2-year subscription.
You just get one, or do you get many?
We just get one.
I need my own.
What about Rolling
We can
Stone?
we'll arrange for some copies.
Could I get a Rolling Stone?
I can get you Local Government Chronicle if you
Oh,
like.
boy, that's a.
That one's really expensive. It's really expensive. I would like that.
They
Thank
could-
you,
they could-
worship, for your tolerance.
You're welcome, and they could scan it and they could email it to you.
Municipal World? I asked them that. They said no.
No?
Your worship,
Well, yeah,
perhaps,
they will, but I gotta pay.
perhaps it's worth a mention. Administration is on an initiative right now to create a library for the organization with relevant legislation, etc., including magazine subscriptions. So that will be available to council.
If I could add to that, Marigold Library has just asked if there is anything that you would like them to put into their library so that you could access it as well. They have Rolling Stone. Look on their easy ones. 2,000 magazines. Don't even say it.
Alrighty, 11.4, Chamber of Commerce. Councillor Blokeland, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Chamber of Commerce got hold of me this morning, and as you heard tonight, their big push is on October 1st for the Fun Casino. They were trying to use it as a little bit of a fundraiser so they can top up their bank account a bit. They were asking if the town would be interested in donating a gift basket for their silent auction.
Go ahead.
Your worship, absolutely. According to our policy, they would just have to submit an application for a donation, and that decision's made at the administration level.
I'll let her know. Thank you. I'll let her know tomorrow morning.
Great, thank you very much. And the one item that I'm bringing forward is in October, the last council meeting in October, we do a review in regards to our organizational meetings and with the committees that we're sitting on. And I see Councillor Walls isn't here tonight, so I'm bringing this forward, and if you want to sit on a different committee or whatever the case may be, I guess, if you want to hold a discussion on this right now, or if we're all happy where we are, maybe we don't need the discussion, it's open.
Well, Your Worship, I think I'm gonna have to step off the Canada 150 committee, just because I know I'm gonna be on a fundraising committee for the new field house, so I think I'm gonna have to step off that one,
So am I,
because we're gonna be on that fundraising
and
committee.
that's a big project.
Bob's on the Canada 150 anyway.
Yeah, you guys can pick up the pace.
Your Worship, if I
No,
may.
that's okay, it's good to know, and so and if you're not gonna be on those committees, then we will just reassign at that point, that's okay. Yeah,
Could we have a list of the committees and who's on them and what?
Let's put it on for October,
Please.
the first meeting in October.
First meeting in October is the last meeting in October.
It is too.
So,
We can do it then.
Councillor Sobel.
Wonder if that might be discussed at some CAO meeting before that October meeting, but I'm mostly concerned with Councillor Walls and what he's going to be able to do, so there should be a discussion in that regard.
Yeah. So, Councillor Blokman?
No, Councillor Sobel just
Covered it?
covered it
Okay.
for me.
And what I wanted to do is bring this for information, so we start thinking about it ahead of time, and I realize with these thoughts, we do have some concerns, and with, go ahead.
So I'm sorry, I'll ask one more question in regards to Councillor Graychuck and Fuel's intentions in regards to the 125. Is that terms of reference, is that required two? Did we rate that in as two? So is that something that's required by the 125 people? Or is
150.
Or I'm sorry, yes.
That's the bylaw.
That was the requirement in our town bylaw.
Your worship? I would move to honor Councillors Graychuck and Fuel's request to be allowed leave of that committee and to nominate Mayor L. to sit on the Canada 150.
Do we need to do it right now, though?
Why not?
No, that would come at an organizational meeting, wouldn't it?
No, I can't. But there's gonna be, remember, September 31st is the deadline
September
for the
30th.
grant, for the Canada 150.
They're
So
still
the
on
question,
until
okay,
then.
let's ask
Well,
this
you're
question.
still on it till then.
You guys is there any need for you to come off the committee right now?
No.
No, okay. We'll hold off on that, please. Okay, that was for information purposes. And Councillor Graychuck.
Your Worship, I'd just like to make note of, I had some discussion with Councillor Peterson as she had taken a survey as to how many people who speaks the longest in most of the council. She surpassed that tonight by far. I want you to know that.
I did,
Good for her.
but it's not me that's keeping track.
Oh,
Thank you very much. And last item on our agenda is Councillor Sobel.
Just very briefly, Your Worship, I'd like to publicly thank my fellow members of this council, Town of Fairview administrative staff, and the good people from our town and surrounding county for the support, prayers, and notes of condolence that my family and I have been receiving over the last 3 weeks. Please be aware that this has been very much appreciated during this most difficult time in our lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sobel, and council is with you and here to help you wherever we can.
Thank you.
I will take a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
We have a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. I guess we don't need to discuss.
Are you gonna